Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter, New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneier, joined as always my co-host Nick Velato, and we wanted to just tap in. Nick's got some time today. I've got some time today as well. It's 10 degrees out. There's nothing to do outside. At least it's sunny. Talk a little Giants football because, things have gone on, and the Giants still don't have an offensive coordinator here. They still don't have an offensive line coach here. What we've learned in recent days is they plan to bring in Todd Monken as their offensive coordinator. And in doing so, they were going to bring over Todd Monken's offensive line coach, somebody he worked well with. They wanted to match and marry the offensive line coach and the offensive coordinator, which makes a lot of sense. Now he'll be headed with Monken to Cleveland to be his offensive line coach, Warhop. So the Giants are back to the drawing board on both offensive coordinator and offensive line coach. From what I heard recently, Harbaugh literally tried to call Monken, Nick, and talk him out of taking the Browns job. He probably had a lot of things to say, like, dude, you really want to go to this asshole? And there was such an awkward video with Monken. Like, did you see the one where he's like, oh, yeah, Shador, we tried to draft you, and now it's all coming together. Like, we tried to draft you, what, you mean in the 4th or 5th round, bro? It's such an embarrassment, like, the whole thing. Like, the guy has, like, the combined 39th completion percentage over expected and EPA, Shador Sanders. Only person he was ahead of was Dylan Gabriel, and yet he's now their guy there, apparently, according to Monken, which is not going to be the case, but they may have no option. But either way, it's bad news for the Giants. Monken, to me, was by far and away their best bet, but he's not the only bet. So today we're going to talk about different offensive coordinator candidates. What's the fallout there? Some possibilities for offensive line coach, Nick, if the Giants plan to marry it. But obviously, I do want to address the start of the show with a serious matter, and that being yesterday's news or last night's news. We're recording this on Saturday afternoon about Giants co-owner Steve Tisch. I'll just start by saying this, and I'll turn it over to you, Nick. I know a lot of people in the chat are talking about it. There's a ton of people on Giants Twitter talking about it. When I created this podcast, the Big Blue Banter, and when I called you about it and said, I want to do this with you, it was my objective in having ownership of the podcast to talk about things with the New York Football Giants and with football that bring me joy. One of those things at that point in time was like 2019 or 2018 when I think I first called you. I was for the first time in my life starting to watch all 22 tape and get into it. And I've learned so much in these last 6 years, a lot through you, of the tape. That brings me joy. The X's and O's of football bring me joy. The what and the why of what's happening in football brings me joy. The fandom of being a Giants fan brings me joy. The highs, the lows. Talking about things like billionaires and what goes on with them does not bring me joy. And I don't personally feel an obligation to anyone here who listens to the podcast or anyone in general to talk about non-football things. There will be times where I talk about them, where I have an interest in it. This is not one of them. As George Carlin once said, the billionaires live in their own world, and they're in their own big club. I think he said, Nick, you know Carlin better than I do, but they're in their own big club, and we ain't part of it. And that's right. We ain't part of it. Whatever goes on with these billionaires and what they do. Obviously, it's a serious thing. There are plenty of Giants content creators talking about it. I think Sal, who we've had on the pod, is talking about it a bunch, and Monty. It is important to me, too. I'm not trying to downplay it. It is very serious, these allegations, very nasty, disgusting things going on. It's just not part of what I got. It's not part of the reason I got into and want to talk about the Giants or enjoy talking about the Giants. So that's all I'll say about it. Nick, if you have any comments about it, you can obviously let them go now.
Yeah. So I don't know much in this world, ladies and gentlemen, right? But I do know that you shouldn't befriend a morally corrupt individual who surreptitiously compiles information for leverage. I wouldn't do that. I don't think that's a wise thing that happened to a certain somebody in the Giants organization. But the only reason why I feel it's necessary to say this, though, seems like a seemingly obvious observation, but apparently it's not, because a lot of those billionaires who were in that club made that mistake. So yeah, I felt like I had to share this to ensure that nobody else makes that mistake, because these billionaires, guys, they do got a lot to say. So I'm taking a little bit of a different angle there, Dan, but a lot of sway and a lot to say. And I am sickened by that news for many reasons, but there's no need to expound on that anymore. But it does have to do with the Giants organization, because it does. Steve Tisch is the co-owner of the organization. Right. So this is that's a bad day for New York Giants, but it does not have to do with this offensive coordinator search.
or anything going on with the Giants moving forward. I mean, it does to an extent, which is why, you know, guys like Sal and Monty are covering it, and God bless them. They can, you know, if you want information on that, go, because definitely a bad look for the Giants. And all sorts of like things that can, you know, I guess offshoot from that. For me, it's just, I want to talk about football. So that's what we're going to do here. Yeah. So, and obviously, you know, I feel bad for everyone in that. I'm not trying to downplay it. The victims, it's disgusting. The whole thing is just absolutely disgusting. But let's move forward to what we came here to talk about, which is the Giants coaching situation as we move forward. Because listen, this offensive coordinator search, from now what I've hearing, is going to be a casting of a wide net. There are a lot of different candidates in the mix for the Giants offensive coordinator. We're going to get into all of them, but there are a couple other things I wanted to talk about before, because Nick, I'm not sure if you heard, but John Harbaugh did an incredibly extensive and expansive interview with Howard Eskin, where he really went over a lot about, you know, just what he's planning to do with the New York Football Giants as their head coach and what brought him to it. And he kind of, you know, quelled, not a concern, but he confirmed a suspicion I had that I've debated on Twitter with a lot of Giants haters and the Jackson Dart haters out there who, you know, oh, he just came to the Giants for the money. He came for this or that. No, like I said, and like I tweeted about from the start, he came for Jackson Dart. And when it was asked about that, he said, it's this big. The reason, as far as like, how big of a factor did Jackson Dart play in coming here? John Harbaugh was like, it was this much. Essentially, like, I watched the tape of all these guys and I wanted to coach Jackson Dart. And so one thing that he expanded on, Nick, that I thought was really interesting was he compared Jackson Dart's ability to that of a shortstop. He talked about kind of a infielder. He said either shortstop or a third baseman, and just talking about what differentiates him. And it came to just those ability to make those throws. And I just thought back when he was talking about that, Nick, about all those throws, and I'll do a cut up and a compilation of it at some point, but all those throws where he just snapped the ball off from that 3-4 slot, that shortstop infielder type, you know, throwing motion. And every time I thought back on that, and I'm going to go back and look at the tape, Nick, and then try to see if I can confirm this, but I just felt like he was able to generate a credible combination of velocity and accuracy on these 3/4 shortstop infielder type throws. And then a lot of those times he didn't even have his feet or body aligned to the target. And that, to me, is the definition of arm talent right there. The ability to make that throw off platform from a 3/4 slot and put velocity and accuracy on it. To me, it's his calling card as a thrower. So it really shows that Harbaugh did his work, man. He watched the tape of all these quarterbacks, and that's a really specific observation by him.
I mean, there was positive energy this year. It sounds crazy to suggest, right? Because the Giants it was dismal, and then there was the end of the Dable era, but there was this youth movement, if you will, within the New York Giants. It makes sense that somebody who's in his early 60s, who just signed a 5-year deal, for the people who say it is about the money, Dart definitely plays into it. His legacy of being possibly the first head coach to win a Super Bowl with 2 teams, like that's a massive thing for a very competitive guy like John Harbaugh to attempt to compete with. And Jackson Dart is entering his second year on that rookie contract. And now you can build, and the cap is in a position that you can add those void years, and you have a little bit more flexibility into the future. So from that perspective, yeah, it does seem like a no-brainer job. Jackson Dart certainly had a big role in Harbaugh coming over, but now it's what are we going to do about this offensive coordinator situation? This is like the first speed bump, and it happened basically right away that Harbaugh is going to have to figure out. And what's almost equally as disturbing, but not quite, is the offensive line as well. Like, we're not going to have George Warhop now, which is, like, I heard mixed things about him. A lot of Ravens guys did not like him, whatever. But Carmen Brasillo is no longer with the New York Giants. He's not even an option for the New York Giants either.
Went with Dable, yeah.
Yeah, he went with Dable. We haven't reported that yet. He went with Dable down there. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, maybe Ferentz? Like, is that somebody that a Harbaugh would like to work with? I know he's a younger guy, but he, I mean, I've heard great things outside from the building, but who knows, you know, all that kind of stuff. I don't know what his role was with Carmen Brasillo, but those are two big dominoes that need to be addressed, and hopefully will be addressed here shortly. We got a bunch of names here, dude. I think there's an interesting conversation to be had. Like, would you want to go with, like, how comfortable, Dan? I'm not sure if you're done with the last conversation, but I did want to kick this over. How comfortable with going with somebody who's never called plays before? Because there's a lot of guys out here who like that.
Yeah, this is the big conversation. I don't know why this just made me think about Davis Webb potentially, because he's been interviewed with the Giants.
Yeah, dude.
And I've been waiting to say this on the podcast since I saw it. But the other night, Nick finally addressed the troll hater, and I needed to bring this up on the podcast. But now I left my phone over there. So give me a second to bring this up so I can find the exact comment you made, and you can filibuster me for a second.
I could probably remember the comment.
So the other night, I'm just sitting on my phone. It's late night, and shout out Nick Velato, who did an awesome guest spot with Brandon London on SNY Sports.
Thanks,
Really
bud.
cool thing to do. Yeah, thanks to Brandon and thanks Nick, and did unbelievable job as you would expect from Nick because he's a damn good analyst, and it's proven by the fact that you're all here listening and watching us. But there's this guy. Should I name this loser? I'm just gonna call him that. I don't care. You don't want me to, Nick?
I mean, it doesn't matter to me, man.
He's technically a part of Giants Twitter, I guess, though nobody gives a crap about him or his content. Though he does seem to still get like 1,000 views. I recently checked his YouTube. Still gets like 1.2 views because he has like 26,000 followers on YouTube because he got to YouTube early. But all he does is scream in his videos. Just a total loser of a Giants person. Yeah, I'll just say it. It's Copizzle. Hate the guy, never liked him, and he's a loser to me, and he's a loser to you, Nick. But
he's not a loser to me. He's not a loser to me.
Okay. He's not a loser to you. He's definitely a loser to me. Anyone who's a hater like that is a loser in my mind. So he wouldn't be a loser for any other reason. Nothing he does makes him a loser. The fact that nobody listens to him doesn't make him a loser to me. None of that makes somebody a loser. But the fact that he is a total hater and then shows up in comments on your type of post and my post just to bring negativity and hate makes him a loser to me. So let me make that clear.
That, yeah.
Okay, cool. So anyway, Nick does a great job. Analyst with analysis on a guest spot with Brandon London. And then this loser says Nick has no business talking football. That's the comment that he brings. That's a joy he brings to everybody's life. And so then Nick, who never responds to the haters and never responds to trolls, and I thought this was fitting just to bring this up real quick. We'll pivot off this and talk to OC in a second. But Nick responded with the most Nick response to a hater you could ever have. It's not like me. Like Nick has actual tact. I'm just like an idiot who's just going to start like spewing from the heart and spewing from the emotions. Nick is like controlled, stoic, and he goes, "You've mastered the tone of authority without the inconvenience of depth." That was your comeback. I was like, bam, roasted. Drop the mic.
Yeah, no. I have look, he can have whatever opinion he wants. He's completely entitled to it. I don't understand going on someone's post and saying something like that, especially on like a platform like Instagram where you have like family and stuff like viewing that. I think that's grow up, but at the same time you're a grown man and you can do your own thing. Like it's no skin off my ass, really. It's I wasn't going to say anything until he hit the person who responded to him with the "that's true," like who made him the arbiter of truth type thing. So I was like, all right, now I'll give you a jab. And then he said that he had 35 years of fandom, and I was like, it's really, really cool, buddy. All right. No, actually, it's funny because the South Park reference came in there because he said buddy, he ended, and I said, I'm not your buddy, guy.
Yeah, you were happy to get your South Park reference.
Oh, I'm always happy to get a South Park reference.
I'm not gonna lie, I was just happy to see you dress the haters. Now, Hank Allen says, Dan, you sound like a hater. That doesn't make me sound like a hater. I want to make it clear. I'm not calling him a loser because of all his lack of it, because nobody cares about his Giant stuff. That's totally different. That has relation to him saying nobody listens to Nick. Nobody cares what Nick has to say, and he shouldn't be talking about the Giants. I'm calling him a loser because he shows up on somebody's page and says something like that and does something like that. And I'll stand by that. That makes me a hater. That makes me a hater. I don't care. Anyway, let's pivot. I just thought it was funny to talk about since last show I was addressing the haters, and now Nick's addressing the haters. Christy says something that I thought was interesting. She says, I love what Harbaugh stated he wanted an offensive coordinator for Dart. So we talked about the ability that he likes in Dart. But what he stated, did you get a chance to listen to that interview, Nick, and see what he stated about that?
No, I've been busy up until basically this afternoon.
All good. I'll just summarize it. Basically, what he stated, Harbaugh, that he's looking for an offense coordinator is somebody who is not going, and this is something we always talk about, somebody who's not going to fit the players to his scheme, a la like an Arthur Smith. It's somebody who is going to fit his scheme around the player's skill set. And that's something we always talk about, Nick, so it's not like breaking any groundbreaking news or anything, but it is interesting because he went into a little bit of detail as far as what that means. And he talked about all the different things that Jackson Dart was able to do, which was really cool. The checks, the kills, the ability to do things in the RPO game, the ability to do things under center in the play action game, but also in the shotgun. And just all the different things we saw on tape from Dart. He really did put on film, Nick, like in all honesty, a really diverse skill set. That a good offensive coordinator who comes in, and this is clearly what Harbaugh is looking for, who will and is willing to and is able to and capable of fitting talent around or fitting his scheme to the talent, has a lot to work with when it comes to Dart.
Absolutely, man. You can run the RPOs. Obviously, he has enough arm talent to attack downfield. There's really nothing that he can't do. It's just what's the overall cap of the ceiling of a Jackson Dart, but he can operate a mobile game. He's going to be able to work stretch if you want to incorporate those type of run concepts, and then run bootleg efficiently, throws well on the run. There's a lot to appreciate about Jackson Dart's skill set. And then you factor in the temperament, which is just, I mean, this kid in front, like he did his round of interviews. I know he interviewed with Ed Valentine and a bunch of people on the beat. He understands like the mastery of the interview process.
True.
And he definitely, and that's like one thing, but he also like, I'm sold that he at least has the mindset and the makeup to be great. Right. And he's going to put the work in to be great. Now, does that mean it's going to translate into wins? I'm not sure, but when that kid, some of the stuff this kid says, it comes off as like authentically hardworking and a type of confidence that I really do believe can engender an atmosphere that could lead to winning. Obviously, there's still a lot of other variables that go into that, but there's something to be said about that type of attitude in your quarterback, because I think we all assume that they have it, and I just don't think that's the case. Like Tom Brady had a certain attitude that was very similar to obviously the Peyton Manning and all these like really great, and then there were really talented quarterbacks that we admire who didn't really, they kind of had a bad attitude, right? And they're just talented guys out there. But I like to have a quarterback with that type of temperament, and that's just another aspect of the young man that I really appreciate.
I think that's especially true for having that kind of temperament in New York and in this environment.
Yeah,
and
man.
It's a very difficult environment from the standpoint of there is a lot of media, and there's also B, a lot of media that is looking to create stories that will help them drive. I don't even want to say clicks because that's dumb, but just help them drive interest to the team, especially in seasons when the winning or the games itself are not creating that interest. You know what I'm saying? So that happens a lot, and you need to have the ability to deal with that. And I think Jackson Dart does. But I think the key thing that Harbaugh mentioned like 6 times in his interview that really drives me more toward Dart, and I think is what drove him toward Dart, in addition to the things he broke down on tape, like the ability to make those throws as a shortstop, do all those things, have a very diverse scheme built around him, is the fact that he wants it. Like he works his ass off. And that we had that already with Jones, and we have that now again with Dart. And it's very important, though. We stand by that, you and I, Nick. I think in general, in sports and competition, there's so many people with talent, but the differentiator is, do you have the drive combined with the talent? And that's something that, everyone says. Dable said it, changed. Everyone we've had has said it, but there's a difference between saying that you want to build a team of those players, Nick, and then actually doing it and being able to do it. And I think Harbaugh's proven the latter of that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting now, though. It's who's going to be that guy? Who is going to be that offensive coordinator for the New York Football Giants? Like I was suggesting a bunch of names when I went on with Brennan London. I mean, there's really no way for me to know. I mean, Davis Webb, the only guy who
there's a lot to do on OC. Do you want to? And that's the crux of the show. Before we do you want to talk about the one other thing we had on the docket?
Okay, yeah, let's do that.
I just have some tape that I want to show real quick with that. Sorry, Nick, I didn't want to cut you.
No,
go ahead. Go ahead. Finish.
Right. No. We're gonna roll the tape, and everyone's gonna be like, "What the hell's that noise?" And then YouTube's gonna get scraped for it.
Okay, well, we are running with this tape. I just cut up a song that I needed to just showcase for the true Big Blue Banter fans who also mess with the kind of music that I mess with. The lyrics, we'll let it run, but we'll talk. Anyway, this is in response to Nate Longshore, who said, early in my career as an evaluator, I had this legendary lacrosse coach convince me to examine shin angles if I really wanted to know how athletic a guy is. He argued that change of direction, balance, and body control would show up in guys who could get to 30 degrees with their shin angles. I was skeptical at first, but I couldn't agree more after it continues to show up. Has anyone ever heard of this metric? And he used 3 players to kind of break down what what he's talking about when it comes to shin angles, and that was Lamar Jackson, Michael Vick, and Jackson Dart. So I know this is something we've talked about, Nick, with ankle flexion and shin angles, but I wanted to do a cut up of all of Jackson Dart's 10+ runs to kind of show off what we're talking about.
Yeah, and if people in the chat know the song, Dan wants
the song.
Dan wants it shouted out. He wants to test people's knowledge on what is this 90s hip hop.
Is 90s hip hop.
Gotcha.
It's a deep cut song with 2 of my favorite. Well, one of my favorite rappers and another rapper who, not my favorite, but he was fire on this song.
Okay.
Cool guy. Even a cool guy can't get too high. You know every lyric to this.
That's good, man. No. Yeah. Now you can see though, just by watching the tape here, like we've talked a lot about the angles and all that kind of stuff and his angular build, if you will, just as an athlete in general, but the maximization or his ability at least to maximize runs by the subtle moves and the setting up the blocks. It's that's one of the things that we were really impressed with early on. with the Jackson dart tail. I saw a couple plays like that that best elucidated the point.
From here to Tennessee, police want to finish me.
So I thought Dan was bobbing to what I was saying. He's like, "Whoa, is this guy talking about Jackson?
Big L, bro.
Who is this guy?" Yeah. Big L. I'll take the Big L. Yeah, no.
But look at these runs.
No, absolutely, dude. And again, with Dart, I think there was a lot made of, his inability to get that. I felt like he did a better job with that down the stretch of the season. And a big reason why that became a narrative was because he ended up getting hurt and he took that massive hit by what was it, Caden Ellis or whatever, against Patriots in prime time. I think all those that happening really kind of like labeled this kid a injury prone guy, where throughout his career,
you can see him slide a little at the end of that too.
No, of course. Yeah.
He started to learn a little. The Raiders game, he had a couple slides, but then you also see him at the Raiders game when he sees that end zone. He's just like, boom, I'm taking the crunch. And he just like gets smashed up through the face mask and he's like pulling it up over here. But
I know, man. Tough kid. I can't wait to see the YouTube comments on this.
Yeah, it's going to be funny. We're all over the place with this live show. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there. Might put that up on YouTube. Let's talk All-C guys now. So you started with Webb. Is that where you want to start with? He's one of the guys they've actually brought in for an interview.
Yeah, so Davis Webb, that's I think the reason why Brandon brought me on was because I tweeted something about, Davis Webb, what are you doing? Like, what you up to, bro? And I mean, this is, guys, he already made the impossible happen. He's the only quarterback to throw a touchdown pass to a Kenny Golladay wearing a Giants blue. like, I mean, that alone, they're like, all right, here you go, man. You made that contract now. Nah, I'm bullshit. But yeah, dude, all I've heard out of Denver is how, and even prior to that, really dating back to his time with Dable in Buffalo, how this guy's going to be a coach. This guy's going to be a coach. He's only 31 years old. He's been here a bunch. The Giants know him very well. He's been teammates with some of the guys in that locker room. I really cannot opine on what he's done as a play. I've never seen it, right? But like, I think this leads to a more football philosophical conversation where it's like, how willing are you to take a risk on someone who's never called plays before, but is very good in a meeting and knows how to coach and knows how to teach, right? But can you entrust them when it's, okay, how many yards did they get? Okay, I got like 5 seconds to get this play off. Can they do that? Like, there's not a great simulator for that. And John Harbaugh is in his early 60s. He just signed a massive deal. Is he going to be in a position where he wants to deal with a rookie OC? Because we've seen a lot of teams recently fire their OCs after 1 year. We just saw it with Philadelphia and Kevin Patullo, right? Like 1 or 2 years. But I just look at the Giants situation and what's going on broadly around the National Football League. We have a lot of young guys getting jobs. And I think a lot of people are trying to find that next young offensive mind. Like, the NFL is cyclical. We all know this, right? And that's why I love what Mike McDonald did up in Seattle, because he's this defensive guy. And now maybe there's going to get ahead of the next cycle. You start finding these young offensive guys like the Clint Kubiaks of the world and all of them to combat the stellar defenses that might be coming up out of the McDonald tree and with some of the other teams that were still in the playoffs.
Right.
I'm not opposed to taking that risk. Like I said earlier, fortune favors the brave, but that's a freaking massive risk for Harbaugh to take. Now, does he do that, or does he like lean on like a Greg Roman or someone like Cliff who's done it for years?
Please don't mention that name on this podcast.
Which one?
Greg Roman.
Oh, he's in the thumbnail, and it's a good picture of him too.
Please don't mention that name on this podcast. If it's Greg Roman,
Damn, we talked about someone earlier that was a little bit more controversial.
God. But listen. Yeah. And this is the thing that's working me up. Let's not go there. Totally different. This is football talk. Roman, if the Giants go Greg Roman, man, I'm supposed to sit here and trust everything John Harbaugh does, but that's a tough one for me. I'm glad to see he hasn't been brought in for an interview yet. He's already been fired by John Harbaugh once. He was also fired by Jim Harbaugh. I think the Greg Roman ship has sailed, thank God. Because it's not like Greg Roman is just some idiot sitting there. He could come in, Nick, and get the Giants to like a baseline level of like 20th, 15th in the league, but the offense is just so capped with Greg Roman. I don't want to cap Jackson Dart. I don't think you need to put a cap on this kid's talent and skill set. I think you need to look for the ceiling, which leads me to your point. Like, Davis Webb and all these types of potential play callers offer that ceiling, right? If you bring him in for an interview, Davis Webb, and he's just as impressive as he's been at every stop with the Broncos, with the Giants, and people are like, this is a really bright offensive mind. This is somebody who can be an unbelievable offensive coordinator. You're taking him on with the sense of, look, every great offensive play caller in the history of the NFL, Nick, at some point had never called plays, right? You know what I mean? Like, it's not like you're always going to hire somebody with experience. Someone, Ben Johnson before he was Ben Johnson didn't call plays. Liam Cohen before he was Liam Cohen didn't call plays. And I think those are the two best doing it right now when it comes to play calling, play design, route separation, and play sequencing. The combination of those four things. I watched a lot of tape this year for Beyond the Box Score. Those were 1 and 2 for me, Johnson and Liam Cohen. But, to get there, you at some point you've never done it. So there is an upside, Nick, to hiring someone like Davis Webb. But there are also downsides to something like that. And you mentioned it. It's just like the experience. And somebody tweeted about this recently, which I thought was interesting. They were like, it's no surprise to me that you see a higher increase in play callers in the NFL going for it on 4th down. It's because they've had more reps doing it because they grew up playing Madden. I don't know if that, like, someone said that seriously. I don't know if that is really a serious comment, but it is definitely, something to be mentioned. There's something to be mentioned about, even if it's not that, even if it's just that they're in today's NFL and they've seen so many more coaches doing it, you're getting more reps. You're looking at more examples of what to do in those situations. But somebody like a Davis Webb, he doesn't have a lot of reps to work with. It's kind of just hit the ground running and see what you could do.
Yeah, and that's a massive risk there. And there's other names too that fall into this. So I wish we could break down tape and go over like, these are the type of concepts, but this is somebody who has worked with Brian Daboll. He has been with the New York Giants multiple times, and he's obviously worked with Sean Payton. Those are some offensive minds right there, right? And he's reportedly showing that as well. So like, I'm open at least to it, but all of it can be discerned through the interview process, right? Like, I don't know anything else about what he can do because there's nothing tangible to look at when it comes to play calling.
Exactly.
Yeah. But another name though that keeps coming up, and I see people in the chat talking about it, but it is Charlie Weis Jr., who is Charlie Weis's son. Go figure. And why he is relevant right now. He was the quarterbacks coach for Jackson Dart at Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin, and he followed Lane Kiffin to LSU, and now supposedly after, I think, rumors, or maybe he initially said he wasn't interested in the job, but now that Harbaugh's there and Dart's like reaching out, they might be in contact from what I'm hearing, at least not like from anybody, not from any sources or anything, just like by scouring Twitter. But yeah, dude. So Charlie Weis Jr., another 31-year-old though. Like, we're looking at very young potential guys. The thing though, again, with Charlie Weis Jr., he was with Lane. So Lane's calling plays. So you have that, aspect of, but he has a really tight relationship with Jackson Dart, and that could be a name to certainly watch out for.
That's another example of what we just kind of broke down with Davis Webb, right? It's like,
exactly.
Has he ever called plays before? No. Is he a bright young offensive mind? Probably. But what is the extent of that? Or how much can we use that to trust calling plays, especially when it's like, not only has he never called plays before, Nick, he's never been at the NFL level. So like, it's one thing to watch Lane Kiffin call his system. And yeah, Jackson Dart played in that system. But guess what? Everything's different because it's the NFL versus the college game, and the hash marks are different. And it changes the entire way to scheme an offense. I mean, just look at Michael Penix at the NFL level versus the college level. They look like two different quarterbacks from the tape I watched of the Falcons last year. And it's, I only watched a couple games of him, but it was all I needed to see versus the 12 games I saw of him at Washington and at Indiana. These are different schemes and different systems that you're capable of running at the college level that you're not capable of running at the NFL level. So that's an even bigger risk to me in that sense, Charlie Weis. Now, again, with both Weis Jr. and Webb, it could be slam dunk. You could be getting the next Ben Johnson possibly, but you could also be getting somebody who could really, really hurt you, not just from a wins and losses standpoint, but potentially from a developmental standpoint with Jackson Dart.
Yeah, the thing with Weis is like Dart knows how this guy works. He knows his mind, right? Like he knows he has a really tight relationship with the guy. So that you at least have that working relationship that was successful at one point under the belt where they're familiar with each other. And it's not like you might be fitting a square peg into a round hole. Now that doesn't mean he's going to be a good coordinator though, right? Like absolutely not. But those are like the two young guys that have been floating around Twitter who have never called plays. There's guys like Tim Kelly, who I floated out during the New York Post interview because he's on staff. I think that would be maybe more desperation. And I'm not saying that to besmirch him or anything, but I just haven't heard anything from the Giants being interested. But they did retain him on the staff and Charlie Bowen. I think there's reasons why they did that. I mean, the transfer over from the coaching staff to the players, I'm sure that had something to do with it as well. But he's at least an option that has called plays in multiple spots that the Giants do have on staff. So that's like maybe like a worst case scenario, which I don't like saying it that way, but I think that's how a lot of people would perceive perceive it possibly, right? But he has the experience. And then you have Cliff, bro. Cliff Kingsbury is another name.
Before we get to Cliff, let's get to, because the way I've been told, and I don't know if this will play out this way, but I've been told there's a top three, and it's the two we've mentioned, and it's this third person who hasn't been mentioned at all. So I'm hoping this is right, because it's this third person who I have not by far and away. This is the OC I will, if I had to pick right now, Nick, if somebody said, Dan, you have to pick right now, who do you want out of the guys we talked about? Webb, Weiss Jr., we'll talk about Cliff and a couple other guys, Roman.
For me, I want to make one addendum, and I hate to cut you off, dude. But
I'm the most guilty of that at all, and I do apologize for that. I'm like an ADHD brain, just racing through my head like an idiot.
Yeah,
go ahead.
But I just wanted to make a correction, because I said that Weiss didn't call plays. He did call plays, but I believe, and someone in the chat said this, and I looked in other places. I think he does have some experience calling plays under Lane, if that's true.
But Lane I didn't call some plays. That's
what people are saying in the chat, and I looked it up, and it says he has extensive experience with primary play calling, notably running the offense for Lane Kiffin at Florida Atlantic and South Florida and Ole Miss. But I don't know to what extent. So yeah.
Oh. I didn't know that either.
But overall, though, it's still Lane. Like Lane, I think maybe oversaw the operation, if that was the case. I wasn't really familiar with that. That's what Google is saying. That's what the chat is saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Google's never wrong. But either way, it's a
never
college.
Never once.
Either way, it's a college scheme. So it is what it is. I mean, look, Giants, Brian Dable tapped into some concepts that he brought over from Ole Miss, but it's clear he didn't just say, all right, let's just go ahead and completely copy that system and bring it over to the NFL, because it wouldn't work. That's the thing. Lane Kiffin's system wouldn't work in the NFL. The rules are different, and that's something that's very important. But with that said, I mean, we saw what happened with Ryan Grubb when he tried to come to the NFL. It was an absolute disaster coming from that Washington scheme to the NFL. With that said, the guy that I want to highlight, who I actually have heard is in the mix when it comes to Giants offensive coordinator, and I hope this person who told me this is correct, because he's number one on my list just because of the fact that he has already called plays. And it's Tanner Engstrand, who was the Jets offensive coordinator from the 2024 or 2025 season. Now, you might look at me and say, are you crazy, Dan? Did you just say that your top offensive coordinator option is somebody who coordinated the Jets offense in 2025? And I'll look at you and I'll say, yeah, dude, what do you think I give a crap about the stats and the numbers when your quarterbacks were Brady Cook, Justin Fields, and injured Tyrod Taylor, with Garrett Wilson injured for the entire season, and idiots like Alan Lazard running routes out there, and then two guys you traded for midseason who didn't know the playbook? Of course, because guess what? I'll go beyond that, and I'm going to look into some things that I've discovered just from doing research on Tanner Engstrand. And the first is that this is according to, we've had on the show, I think before, Nanya, who's the film guy, the big film, Michael Nanya, big film guy for the Jets. And he's a really awesome film guy. And again, I don't watch enough Jets film, but this guy does. He breaks down the all 22, so I'm going to trust him. And he said he did a whole article on how the stupidest thing Aaron Glenn did was fire this guy as offensive coordinator. He's like, it's like the only guy who was doing something good for your team last year, and you fired him. Jets had the 8th highest wide open target rate in the NFL. He wrote, 1 spot ahead of Mike McDaniel's Dolphins, 2 ahead of Detroit, and 3 ahead of Ben Johnson's Bears. But they were 29th in completion percentage on those passes, on the 8th highest wide open. And despite having 3+ yards of separation and 30th in drop rate. So they dropped a lot of passes. The quarterback didn't throw them accurately, despite having 3+ yards of separation. Okay, so I look at that. Then I think about Matt Harmon, who we've also had on the show, one of the best at evaluating wide receivers and has done a ton of tape. Really good tape guy. And he said, anytime I've charted a Jets wide receiver this year, I've come away really impressed with the design of their passing game. Plenty more to figure out, but definitely a unit I could be intrigued about in 2026 if they find the right quarterback. Well, not anymore. You can't be intrigued about them because they fired their offensive coordinator. Then I looked into his background, Tanner Engstrand. He comes from the Bears. He came right from Ben Johnson. So he's learned under that. And every time I watch, there was no team I watched more tape of this year, Nick, than the Bears and the Jaguars on offense outside the Giants, because that was the teams we just kept covering over and over, week after week on Beyond the Box Score for fantasy football purposes. And every time I watch Bears tape, dude, their receivers wide open. Just wide open. Ben Johnson's just designing these wide open these schemes with just wide open receivers. So yeah, I'm intrigued by somebody who comes from the Ben Johnson system and did a great job of designing wide open receivers last year. And I think that's honestly the best system in the NFL right now.
Yeah, he's been with the Detroit Lions since 2020. So, and then Ben Johnson went to Chicago, but he went to the Jets and he only got one opportunity. Now, I haven't done any work on the Jets offense. Oh yeah, and prior to the Detroit Lions, he was with the DC Offenders. Oh, I'm sorry, it's actually Defenders. Yeah, he was the offensive coordinator and running backs coach there. So this is somebody who has called some plays before. That's an interesting name. I haven't seen that floated around too much, but I haven't been on Twitter all that much.
Behind the scenes. There's nothing official yet.
There's
I'm just
nothing.
hoping
Okay,
the Giants are
yeah.
interested. Yeah.
Interesting.
And so for me, it just comes down to the fact that he's done it before and he's had experience calling plays and he designed them really well last year. It's not his fault that he had no receivers or quarterbacks.
Yeah, Garrett got hurt when, like week
early.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And after that, it's like I felt like Mason Taylor was like one of their like big threats in the passing game. And
like
that's no shot on Mason, but he's a rookie tight end. You know, that's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, I like that name, Dan. I'm glad we had him included. I did not put him in the thumbnail though, so I'm sorry, Tanner.
Okay. That's okay.
I don't know if anybody would really know what he looks like, though, to be honest.
Let's talk about Cliff. That's the next one. Let's talk about Cliff.
Cliff Kingsbury. Yeah, man. Cliff Kingsbury killed it in 2024, right? Obviously, he was with the Cardinals out in Arizona for a while. He's the head coach out there. It did not go all that well. If I remember correctly, the offense was pretty rigid. Not a lot of flexibility to it. I don't know if there was, a big Achilles heel operating an offense that was led by Kyler Murray, right? So I don't know how much to blame. I do know in 2024, Cliff Kingsbury designed the third best rushing offense, the fifth best scoring offense, the fifth best red zone offense, the third best offense, or the sixth best offense for third down conversion rate, seventh best overall offense in yards per game. A lot of that was due to Jane Daniels playing hot football and also the NFL not really catching up to his overall skill set yet. And we saw it firsthand. Like, the thing I liked about it, well, there's two things I really liked about it. A, he just attacked the vulnerabilities of the Giants defense, both of those games, right? That they played back in 2024 and this past year, but in 2024 specifically. And there is a diversified rushing attack under Cliff Kingsbury that I've always appreciated whenever the Giants have gone up against him. So he's a name that I don't know if I'm like interested, but that's somebody who at least has called plays, has done it at a high level before. I'm not in love with the some of the things I heard about his Arizona days, but it's not like he did a terrible job this year given his circumstances. So that's another name that has been linked to the Giants, it seems like.
Yeah, so Cliff's a play caller who I've really come around to, Nick. You obviously know there's been times in the past on this show, or maybe more on CBS on the Fantasy Football Today show, where I've just knocked him. Felt like he really struggled at the end of his tenure with the Cardinals, came back, reinvented himself with the Washington Commanders, and I was actually really impressed. And when we've watched the tape on him, man, it feels like he does a really good job of designing the run game. So I think if he was the offensive coordinator for the Giants, we would immediately have a really strong run game. As far as what it means for the pass game, I do think he would be in some ways very limiting to what Jackson Dart can be as an NFL passer and an NFL thrower, just based on some of the things I've seen out of his system. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. I think he can design an offense that gives us one of the highest floors, if not the highest floor of any of these offensive coordinator candidates. He's called plays before. He's been a head coach before. There's a lot to like about him and that I'm not sure everybody's picking up on, really. And there's been a lot of negativity surrounding him. With that said, does he fit what John Harbaugh kind of broke down earlier? You know, what he said in that interview with Eskin. What does he want for Dart? It sounded like he doesn't want somebody who's going to come in with a scheme. He doesn't want somebody who's going to fit the player, Jackson Dart, into his scheme. It's kind of why I'm not so sure he's going to be serious about a guy like Cliff or a guy like Tanner Engstrand, who I do want the Giants to look into. It's why I think, honestly, when push comes to shove, we might see Davis Webb hired here, because I think Davis Webb might be the one in the interview who says, I don't have a system in place. I'm just going to look at Dart and tell you, as long as Davis comes prepared for the interview and he says, I just looked at Dart tape and this and this and this. We'll do this and this and that for Jackson Dart and for the Giants offense. To me, that's going to be what sells Harbaugh. Who's going to have the best plan for Dart? And it's not going to be like Cliff saying he'll fit into my system in this way.
Yeah, no, I get that. It is funny, though, because who was Cliff's offensive line coach in Washington? I'm circling back to Cliff a little bit here.
Was it our boy? It was Bobby Johnson. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if there is a way to possibly reunite there. But yeah, no, I'm back to Davis. I'm right there with you, Dan. It's something that I'm willing to look at. I don't really have a clear cut number one guy, I don't think, because a lot of the guys that because I don't know if I love the ones who have called plays, and a lot of the other ones I just don't know, right? So I don't want to just like completely outsource my opinion on the hire to just trusting the process. But there is a little element of like, if he interviews Davis Webb, and Davis Webb's like, bop, 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 and like John was like, dude, this guy, he's been a coach for a few years and was a quarterback, and he's blowing me out. Pause. And he's doing a great job, right? Like I have to just be like, yeah, let's see if you guys can work together, right? Like, and just kind of trust that process. Because I mean, like Cliff, I don't hate that idea, but like I'm not gonna like, yeah, we got, like there's really no one out there that's like that at this point.
No, Monken was that guy. Monken has done everything that Harbaugh said he wanted in offensive coordinator, right? Like Monken has fit systems around quarterbacks like Stetson Bennett, and then all of a sudden a new system around somebody like Lamar, and taking Lamar to a totally different level than I've ever seen him as a passer. Like that was the guy to get. Annoyingly, the Browns are such an incompetent piece of crap franchise that they like fired Stefanski, which they shouldn't have done. They could have just kept Stefanski. They're not in a position to even fire and move on. They're not ready to move on. They still have all this dead cap. They should have done this next year. And then nobody wanted to hire. Nobody wanted to work for them. Everyone's like pulling out of their freaking thing. And then Monken was like, I'm never going to probably get this opportunity again, which I think was a little bit short-sighted, honestly, from Monken, because if Monken had maybe not, because if Monken had blown the doors off as Giants offensive coordinator, some people have been like, that would give him a better chance, but maybe not, because he was an older coach. Like people usually don't hire these old guys. The Browns were just like, we got nothing. And this is what we're going to do. And maybe this guy has proven, he can design offense. Maybe that's what we need right now. They need miracles there in Cleveland. They honestly need miracles with their cap situation, their quarterback situation, and their declining offensive line and lack of draft capital. So maybe he'll be the guy to do that. I doubt that. But, it sucks for us.
You want to know another name that worked with John Harbaugh very early? I think the first 2 years as the offensive coordinator of the Baltimore Ravens from 2008 to 2009, Hugh Jackson.
Oh, wow. Remember him?
Yeah, I looked it up. I was like, oh, that guy's got to be in his 70s. He's like 59 or 60 right now.
Can I just thank Triple Putt Pat for a second for hyping us up? He says 11 more likes to get to 100 likes. Hey. Please get us over the triple-digit like mark. And thank you, Triple Putt. And if you want to support the show, hit the like button. Please leave comments. Otherwise, I'll just keep running this Big L Mace Up-Down Connection video and make you listen to that music over and over. So it's really
people liked it. At least in the live show, they liked it.
Let's run it again.
Okay,
let's talk over it. Let's get to some supers and run this highlight tape. These are all of Jackson Dart's 10+ yard runs from the 2025 season. And let's hit some supers while we do it.
Yeah, here's some soupies. It's kind of hard to read with that. No, I'll do it this way. Gianelli, thank you so much.
No. You're Italian, Nick. Try that again.
Gianelli.
There we go.
Yeah. Good catch. Gianelli, 2291. Hey, how you doing? Glad I could catch a live stream finally. What do you guys think made Harbaugh want to keep the tight end coach over some of the other coaches? Like, I think, one, there could be something personal there, but I do think his experience calling plays with the Houston Texans under Bill O'Brien and under Mike Kafka last year, I think that played into it. And Charlie Bolin was the same way. But I also believe it probably has something to do with both of those men individually with John Harbaugh. Maybe they had some sort of relationship. I'd like to say maybe the Giants really stuck their necks out for them. We heard that happened for Charlie Bolin, but did it happen for Tim Kelly? I'm not sure. We know it happened for Carmen Brasillo, and then Harbaugh was like, I'm okay. So there's a I would say, I think the fact that he called plays definitely did not hurt.
I think the Brasillo thing also, we kind of just got screwed by like the timing of it, right? Like if Monken had already taken his job with the Browns and the news was to Harbaugh, okay, he's going to bring over Warhop with him, I think Brasillo might be our offensive line coach right now, honestly. But I think at the time, all that was happening, Harbaugh was, open and honest with Brasillo and was basically like, look, man, we're probably going this direction of Monken and Warhop, so explore other options, or we can't guarantee you a spot if you want to stay around and see if you maybe get it. And so from Brasillo's standpoint, he's like, all right, why would I do that? Let me see what else is up there and available to me. And Brian Daboll was a hot coach on the market as far as offensive coordinators go. You knew he was going to get a job somewhere, whether it be the Eagles or ultimately where he went to coach Cam Ward, because he'd obviously much rather coach Cam Ward than Jalen Hurts, even though Jalen Hurts won a Super Bowl and is supposedly an elite quarterback, which you put two and two together and try and figure that one out, because I know what I'm thinking. But anyway, he went and coached with Brian Daboll because that's a guaranteed job for him, and he's already worked with Daboll, and he trusts Daboll. So we lost Brasillo that way, and it is what it is. But I don't think he wants to lose all these coaches, and I think it's proven with somebody like Kelly. So I'm happy to bring him back.
Yeah, absolutely. AFC 5253. Thank you so much. I guess because he's a known commodity, the idea of Kingsbury piques my interest. Just jumping in. Did you guys have a wish list? excuse me, AFC.
Yeah,
And he
went
said
over it.
OBJ. I like how that's. I don't know if I have an organized wish list, but the coaches that we went over are all guys linked to the Giants, and there are pros and cons to each as we've discussed throughout the show. MB834.
I'll talk about that real quick. I think
Okay.
my wish list, it's not set in stone, but would probably be Engstrand first, second Webb, and then third Weiss Jr., and then probably Cliff. I have way low the list, Greg Roman. Just don't even think about it.
Greg Roman. MB834 Charlie. Thank you. Love the show, guys. So pumped for the all 22 recaps next year. So are we, man. So are we. Which
can't wait.
D-back do you think turns it around the most with the new DC next year? Banks, Newman, Holland, or other? I'd like to say Banks. I think that would be excellent. And in theory, it makes sense. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. And as we've seen with Tay Banks, there are some reasons to maybe question if he's going to put his full effort in and all that kind of stuff. That's not great. I don't have that with Holland and Newman. I do think Banks might have the most potential of all those players, though. But if I had to pick, I think I'm going to go with Holland.
So that's your pick. So you're looking into an Magic 8 Ball, Nick, or that's not even the right thing. You're looking into.
No, I think that was good.
No, that's what you can wish for. Let's not wish for it. Let's look into like a.
I don't know where you're going with this.
You'll see in a second. It's like a Black Mirror episode or something where you're looking. You can somehow see into the future. Okay, the timelines have converged. Everything is happening at the same time, which is probably true in real life. This is probably not the present. The future is probably not the future, and the past is not the past. It's probably all happening at the same time. But that's a larger discussion for another day, and not this podcast. With that said, being able to see into the future, if I could guess what I'm going to see, Nick, and what we'll see, my pick would be Deontay Banks. I know it's stupid. I know it's risky to make this prediction. I just look at the tape that we broke down and the tape I've seen of Denard Wilson with the Titans, and these corners pressing up on these receivers. I just think I trust Banks more. And as far as like, I want to say Holland like you did, or did you say Newman or Holland?
I said Holland. I
want to say one of those safeties, but I thought the same thing would happen with Bowen, dude. And we got nothing out of them. I need it. I need to see it to believe it, that we can have safeties who make impact plays on this roster, because I haven't seen it since McKinney.
Yeah, for Banks, it really is just like play the run. And I think he could be a fine starter. If you just play look, you're never going to be the guy. Well, you might be. I don't want to say that, but I'm saying if you don't fix your ability to get your head around, locate the football, those types of instincts, if that doesn't come to you naturally, and that's a hurdle to overcome, I can deal with that. I won't like it, but that you could still start on the team with his physical skill set and athletic ability. Whereas if you can't play the run, I can't have you out there. You know what I'm saying? Because he is so athletic and has so much talent that he can get by just being close in coverage and flailing his arms up in the air enough to knock some passes away. And if he could do that at this point, that's a win. That's a loss overall, but we are where we are at this moment. So we could just do that. Massive win for Tay Banks of the Giants.
That's fair. And it's definitely obviously a risk by me to choose a player like Banks, who I think somebody mentioned in the comments, Bill Maxfield, he's got a good point. He says Banks, by Harbaugh's own definition, is of what he is looking for, does not even make the roster. That could be the case. Banks could be cut. It literally is that type of situation where I'm looking at my crystal ball or my ball, whatever, and I'm saying, okay, I could see Banks being the guy who benefits most from this new system, but also at the same time might not even be on the roster. So it's definitely a possibility. But as far as just fitting the system, I just picture in my head we're us talking next year, Banks looking pretty good in coverage all game, Banks doing those types of games potentially.
Dan, I don't know if there's a different archetype that fits this system better than Tay Banks if he plays.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? That is the cornerback that they're all scouting for right now. Is we need somebody who is big, somebody who is physical, somebody who can press,
not afraid to press and jam.
And someone who can play man coverage. That's what they're looking for. And that's Tay Banks to a T. It's just, if you run at him, he's going to not really want to run.
You can't put him at the back run.
Doesn't really want to do the one thing you're really paid to do. I know it's cover, but also tackle. When you think of football, you're in the yard with your friends, you're tackling each other, right? It's the one thing that you do from a young age. And he doesn't want to do that.
There's hope for me, at least, that somebody
same here,
Wilson, who's a younger defensive coordinator with a background coaching defensive backs, can be the one who gets through to him. He's a young kid. He's a Gen Zer, I think. And Gen Zers are, us millennials, we look down on Gen Zers. I'm just going to be honest.
I don't.
I don't actually, but I just wanted to say that because I thought it was funny. But regardless of that comment, and you always have to clarify, just a joke, Nick. It was just a joke. I don't look down on Gen Zers, obviously. I don't look down on anybody except for the guy who was a hater to Nick on his comments. And yes, I do look down on him for that. I'll bring that back up. Won't mention the name again. Not worth the time. But with that said, I do think there's a possibility Wilson can get through to Banks, because also it's like Banks is a human being, Nick. He obviously knows, like, this is it. There's one more coaching change with the Giants. This is your last chance. And like Bill Maxfield said in the comments, he could get cut otherwise, he could get cut. And I'm sorry, baby bubs. I was joking. I do not look down on Gen Z people, obviously.
How dare you, Dan?
I don't look down on anyone in life. I am in no position to be looking down on any human being at any point in time. Let me make that clear.
Let's see what we got here. Oh, do you still have interest in the Giants interviewing Tanner Engstrand? Yeah, we just talked about that. Giants 8690. Thank you so much for the donation. Oh, I had a seltzer burp right there, but I got it off the camera, so you guys aren't even aware of it, other than the fact that I just told you. David Goodman, what's going on? You have to be able to trust Harbaugh. His greatest skill as a head coach is identifying good coaches, and he isn't tied to one system. That's I'm in that same boat, right in that area. I just hope it works out, because it does suck that there was a little bit of a speed bump here. What you got a smirk on your face for?
It's just getting cooked in the chat by all our Gen Z fans. I am not throwing you under the bus, I promise.
The Gen Z stare is amazing.
I was just making a joke. I was just making a small little joke. You didn't just joke around here.
Pilks aplenty, Gen Z stare. I love the comment, right? That's excellent. But you're using, like, is that guy still relevant? The paperclip from Microsoft Word that's like a millennial thing. Is he still around? The paperclip? Does he still have relevance?
Above millennial? Is that before millennial? No, that's.
I remember that from when I was
I do too.
Really young in school. I'm sure it was probably predates our time in school, but it's just interesting because the Gen Z stare. And it's like, oh, the little freaking paperclip's back. Yeah, it's a Gen X thing. Yeah, as David says. Yeah, I thought. Yeah,
Gen X thing.
That's crazy, man. So let's see what's next.
Clippy, that's his name. He's immortal. He is immortal. I remember Clippy.
The paperclip was fire. Didn't they try to create other little wacky characters to go along with Clip? I don't remember any of them. I remember the paperclip though.
I do remember that Clippy. Yep, without a doubt.
And thank you so much for the donation, buddy. You didn't say anything, but Keith.
Appreciate you. Appreciate everybody.
Chinam. Thank you so much. I probably butcher all these names, but yeah, I think that's all.
Appreciate all the super chats, even from the Gen Z people. No, just kidding. Just kidding.
Nah, I mess with Gen
Z. Thank you to everybody listening today to our live show. Talked about some OC candidates. We talked about this new guy hating on Nick and what he said, and Nick's reaction to that, and making Nick feel uncomfortable about me bringing this up for the 17th time and mentioning the guy's name, which I know Nick doesn't like any of this, but I am who I am, and I will always be who I will always be. Thank you to everybody tuning in. Please hit the like button. Please support the show by leaving comments. Also, you can go ahead and download shows on Spotify and iTunes. That really helps us grow as well. Let me just be clear about that. Please leave a rate and review as well to juice us up that algorithm. It's all about algorithm juicing these days, and that's what we're doing. We're not juicing. Yeah, you got to juice that algorithm, That's what you do. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.